Hey everybody, how's it going out there? Well, some of you might dislike the commentary that we're going to be doing today because we're talking about dislikes. And I'm kind of late to the party. A lot of people on YouTube have already covered this particular topic months ago when it was first announced, probably about a month ago at this point when it was first announced, that YouTube would be removing visible dislikes from the channel, from content creators, channels from videos such as this one. And I kind of wanted to go over today about my take on it because one of the things that YouTube presented in its arguments about doing this was it was to protect smaller creators, right? It was to protect smaller creators from this concept of being raided by quote-unquote haters or groups that were against somebody's particular content if the content is controversial or political, that there would be people who would kind of quote-unquote hate raid or like dislike raid a video and cause the video to be disliked. My small channel would fall under the purview of a lot of the things that Google says that it helps protect small channels. And from at least my take on it, this kind of thing has been happening for a while, but it's only happened on my channel 2 to 3 times. I do believe it's happened maybe 4 times at most, and I know exactly which videos it happened to. So in that essence, if somebody has at least somewhat of an ability to kind of read the room or read into statistics, they kind of already know when that sort of thing is happening, and they kind of, a healthy response to that is to not take the like to dislike ratio too seriously. But obviously, this kind of FOMO or fear of obfuscation or fear of being disliked a lot is something that many content creators can psychologically get into turmoil over. So obviously YouTube wanted to obfuscate that to protect the image of their content creators. I think it was more for the bigger content creators than the smaller ones. I think that if people were going on dislike rates for like Fox News or CNN or MSNBC because they don't like the political sort of leanings or the sort of usage of their content or have a misgivings about the behaviors of their organization, they're going to get some default dislikes from people who are just going to dislike them, right? And obviously main content creators are the ones that are going to bring in money, right? Are going to bring in revenue because a lot of people are going to watch their content because of the whole, sort of popularity effect or the sort of the whole like what they call, I can't remember what the official name for it is, but like it's basically when a lot of population looks at one thing and it sort of gravitates more people towards it because it's large, right? Like not like a small channel like mine, which if I left the platform in disarray and threw my hands up and go, oh man, I'm getting disliked too much. If I decided to do something like that, it wouldn't impact YouTube whatsoever as much as someone like CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News doing that. So let's not pull no punches. Most of us are aware that the removing of the dislike button was probably more for their benefit than ours. Because here's the thing about the likes and the dislike buttons. It basically is useless. I'm going to just come out and say it. When I say kick that like button, it's mostly because it's sort of a meme to do on these kind of platforms, is to say, kick that like button, hit that dislike button. Slap that ravishing like button, everyone comes up with their own thing, right? On saying to do basically that one action. And the reason that people say to do that is mostly because of the quote-unquote algorithm, and that the more likes that you get, the more engagement you get, the more your channel becomes popular, and everyone wants to have a popular channel so that they can use YouTube as a side hustle / a separate source of revenue. And at the end of the day, that doesn't matter to me as much as trying to keep an archive of information rather than trying to do that sort of thing about furry fandom news. So obviously, me talking about something like this doesn't help in that regard. But I also like to try to use this channel in order for me to speak to get better at public speaking and get better at organizing thoughts in real time, which is why this channel doesn't do editing, right? I don't do editing on this channel, which a lot of people might dislike, right? Because they don't like having their time wasted with a lot of interjecting thoughts. But in my opinion, if I get better at presenting things like this in real time, then I could do it in real life when a lot of interjecting thoughts come into match, and then get better at public speaking in real time without having to worry about, are people going to like me because I'm rambling, or things like that. So if you go back to some of my earlier videos, you'll see a lot of more of like me, my legs twitching or going you know, a lot of those kind of things, right? And as time has gone on, I've gotten better about just get it out there, speak clearly, speak poignantly, and get it done. So in that essence, back on the dislike issue, right? I don't think it's going to change behavior as much as Google claims it will. And the reason I say that is because humans are going to human, and humans are a judgy creature. And the reason we can know that humans are a judgy creature is because most popular religions these days have narrowed all their polytheism down to a monotheism, and that one God that they left behind is a judgy God, right? It's the God of judgment. Do I ascend this person into the heavens, or do I push them down to the hells, right? Even and YouTube basically used to be a polytheistic platform. Flavora currently is a polytheistic platform, and what I mean by that is that every article on flavora.com, which I write for as an editor, has a system of 1 to 5 stars, right? Any article or any comment that is made can be rated 1 to 5 stars, and every user has an accumulative story score and an accumulative a comment score, right? And if a person is constantly negative and toxic, like they'll probably get a lot of 1 stars. If someone's providing really good and really excellent commentary, they'll get 5 stars. And so people who have accumulated a bunch of stars can, try to delve into a little bit more controversial things that might get them a few hits, right? And they'll be relatively unscathed versus somebody who just got on the website and starts just crap posting all over the place will basically eventually get a bunch of 1 stars. So what you notice in a system like that is that there's a lot of people who vote 5 stars and 1 stars, but there's not as many people who vote 3, 4, or 5, or 2, 3, or 4, but they do exist. It's not like it's a zero number. So if someone's like, I like the argument, but I don't like the way it was presented, they can vote a 3 on it and stuff like that. So there's more room for neutrality, and YouTube used to be that way. That was the big change to the like and the dislike button before this one, was it went from a 1 to 5 star system to a binary like or dislike, right? It went from polytheism to monotheism, right? Judgment, hell, or heaven. And now they've gotten rid of the dislike. So now it's just a like. Everyone knows how many people liked the video. And by the way, in my opinion, it's like, if the general public is allowed to not view the dislikes, why are they allowed to view the likes, right? Why have any of that public, right? Why not allow them to submit like and dislike and have it completely obfuscated? Because this is the thing. This is where, what is the purpose of the like and the dislike button? What is the purpose of it? Is the purpose of it so that you as the viewer can curate your content by saying, I like this kind of content. I want to see more of this kind of content. So you hit that like button and then you see more of that kind of content. It's like, or I hate this content. I don't want to see it on my timeline again. You hit the thumbs down. And by the way, there are other options like on YouTube where you can click videos and say, don't show me any videos from this channel, right? And I don't see information like that, right? I will never know if somebody sees my YouTube video and clicks on the never show content about this kind of video. I will never know that. But that's important information. How many people are saying, no, I don't like this kind of content, and basically explain why, right? Like, because you get to explain why. It's like, don't show me this kind of content, and then you get to pick from a list, right? Or you get to type something in. And I don't see that information, and that's useful information. Maybe the person doesn't like furries. Maybe they don't like weird commentary videos. I don't know, right? So what is the purpose of people seeing likes? It's the whole, like, that song, Happy. Like, it's to make sunshine and roses and to put, like, a rosemary tint on everything. It's like, look at all these people that like this video, right? Well, we don't want to show people who dislike the video because that would be bad, right? So this is the kind of, like, oddness about the like and dislike function, because right now it's like I'm even questioning what it's for, other than engagement, right? And other than just being a meme, what is it for, right? And a lot of people ask that kind of questions because it's like it's an invisible hand, right? It's like we don't know what the metrics are being used for, and in essence, we don't know how they're being used or what they're utilized for. Is it for helping the viewers curate their content, or is it for us to have feedback for our content? Because I could tell you this right now, this kind of stuff means nothing. Comments are better. Like, and that's why I, as a person who talks about nonfiction writing a lot, believe that writing nonfiction and learning to write nonfiction is important, because you are able to communicate and criticize a lot better without coming off as being an arrogant jerk or coming off as and doing those kind of things. Because if you don't have the ability to do that, you might just, basically just troll people instead of actually improving how they utilize their platforms and such things. So, as a sample set, I decided to try to investigate, and the question I want to answer more than any other right now is how is removing the visibility of dislikes actually going to improve anything, or are people just going to find out things? Because here's my theory. This is my theory right now. And write this theory down, because in a year's time we'll know if it comes to pass or not. My theory is that YouTube's going to go the way of Twitter. And what I mean by that is that people are going to dislike, people are not going to use the dislike as much anymore. What they're going to do instead is they're going to comment on social media about content they don't like for whatever reason, right? And what I mean by YouTube is going to become more like Twitter is that I theorize that people are going to create something called a ratio, right? Because here's the thing, Twitter as a platform doesn't have a dislike feature. They talked about implementing one, but they don't have one currently. But people still determine how much people dislike something on Twitter. But they don't use any of the metrics that are given. They instead use something called a ratio. That ratio basically is this. If you take the number of likes and you divide it by the number of quote retweets plus the number of comments. And that's your ratio. If the ratio is basically low, if that division gives you a very low percentage, what you're going to end up seeing is that it's probably a very controversial comment that is being shared on Twitter and being, basically people are responding to the tweet and are quote retweeting the tweet, but they're not liking the tweet, right? So it's causing fervor and engagement, but it's causing mostly negative engagement. Whereas if someone has a lot of likes, but very low comments and very low responses, if that ratio is a high percentage, then basically that tweet is considered good and considered like many people agree with it, they give it a thumbs up, but they don't engage with it any further. And it sort of shows a psychology about how human behavior happens too. If somebody doesn't like something, they're going to speak about it. Whereas if they like something, they might just go, hey, that's cool, and just move on, right? if no news is good news in the human spheres, as it were. I really wish that we would move in a direction where a lot more people would engage with content that they like rather than the ones that they dislike. just as much, but unfortunately, metrics have always shown that controversial things cause engagement, which we'll get into a bit later. So here's what I did. I took a screenshot here of the last video, the last sort of group of YouTube videos that I did over the past few weeks. These are my latest videos. On them, you could see that I, as a content creator, could still see the like to dislike ratio, which is on the far right of this screenshot. Basically, the last video I did about furries in space and Meeps Kitten's exploration of space, which he successfully completed and luckily came back to Earth this Saturday, and he's safe and sound, and he's good, and I hope he had a great time. There's a bunch of videos on that that you can look for online. And so that one it was 100% likes. Everybody who clicked the like button, right? And you can see the same thing with the one below that about narcissistic furries, basically talking about the dragon, Garo Shadow, the character there in his Discord chat. Basically, and then you have, one I talked about, room rules. That one also had an 100% like ratio. So the last four ones were, universally liked. And then the ones about the furries in Russia, or seen as being extreme in Russia, got one dislike. So you can see that 90.9%. And then it kind of goes down from there. This is now hidden to you. So basically, if you were to go to the video itself, all you would see is the count of likes. You would not see the dislikes on any of these. But as you can see, controversial topics seem to get more engagement than non-controversial topics for the most part. The higher the percentage, the higher the number of likes and dislikes that are entered, and even the higher amount of dislikes are entered, you tend to see those ones have more views. Because usually it's entering an audience that usually isn't my normal one. The interesting thing and why I think this action by Google is a bit biased, as I noted earlier, is because the number of likes doesn't really tell anyone anything either, right? There are going to be people who come onto a YouTube channel and hit the like button immediately, right? They might not even watch the content. They might just like the content creator and they want to support the content creator, so they just click on their video and hit the like button. And then they may or may not watch the video itself. I know this because I do gaming streams every week, and every time even before I start the video, even before I hit the start streaming for the scheduled slot that I do, there's already a thumbs up or two, right? Already, and I didn't even start. I didn't even do anything. I could have just not shown up, and there'd be a like or two in there. And so, there are people who are going to be biased in their likes just as much as they are biased in their dislikes, yet in this case, likes get shown publicly and dislikes don't. So I don't know why you would do that, because all that's going to do, and this is where my theory comes in, is that people are going to create a ratio, just as Twitter has. And this is my example here. So let's take, for instance, the two of the examples that I showed earlier. One is the space one that I did earlier, and showed that it had 9 likes at 100%. And that you have the ousted leaders at Tulsa, or ousted furry leader, seeks revenge in Tulsa, which had basically 1/3 of the likes, dislikes. 1/3 of the people who clicked like or dislike disliked it. So what you can do, though, is if we're talking about the public, so the line below each of these examples down here is that you have basically the ones I can see, and then you have below that is what people can see currently. They only see the dislike and they see the like, and they don't see the numbers next to it. So basically what's going to end up happening is you're going to see this thing called a ratio occur, where people are going to make judgments about whether a video is actually liked by the general audience or not, or is of good quality, right? They're going to make that judgment now based upon a ratio, and that ratio to me is the number of likes divided by the number of views. So for instance, when we're talking about the space one, we have 69 views. Nice. And we're going to divide that by we're going to take 9 and we're going to divide it by the 69 views, and we're going to get a ratio of 13.04%. If we take the number of people who hit the like button versus the number of viewers in the ousted total leader video, we're going to get a ratio of 5.3%. And as you can clearly see, the ones that had dislikes on it now has a ratio of 5.3%. And this is where I think the flaw in this idea behind Google comes from. Because before, we had 3 options as content viewers to show the world how we feel about content on YouTube. We had thumbs up, we have thumbs down, and then we have doing nothing at all. Those were our 3 options. And before, you could say, well, of the, people, so there was like, what? So it's like 1/4. So 4 people hit thumbs down on the ousted leader one, and 12 people hit thumbs up. And then everybody else, if you take 226 and subtract 16 from it, then you have 210 people who viewed the video and did nothing. And you know that because it's transparent and you can see it. Unfortunately, now people are going to be basing whether a video is good quality or bad quality based on the like to view ratio. And that ratio is going to make it so that people who do that third option, right? You have the thumbs up option, the thumbs down option, and the don't do anything option. Now, the thumbs down option and the don't do anything option are now equal. They're seen as the same thing to the regular viewer because the regular viewer is going to use this kind of ratio to discern whether the video is a good quality or not, even if it's not algorithmically provided by YouTube. And the reason I know this is because of Twitter, right? So that's my theory. And you watch the social media spaces and you'll see that that's something that's probably going to get adopted, right? And so, is that accurate though, right? That's the next question. And so, I went through and created a spreadsheet of some of my most watched videos and also of the latest videos and tried to see if that is actually a discernible way to determine whether a video is popular or not versus the like to dislike ratio I can see behind closed doors. So the top part of this chart here are some of my latest videos, the last 8 that I did, and then below that is some of the more popular videos that I have, as in the most views. What you can see here is that the results here kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought it was going to be pretty clear cut, but it actually isn't. There is some obfuscation that happens by removing the dislike view. What you can see here is that if there are dislikes, so basically how this chart reads is this. The number of views is seen in the column views. The number of likes and the number of dislikes are presented too on those videos. So the like to dislike ratio is sort of how people would have viewed it before, right? And how people would have seen a video before. And basically, how people would have discerned things is if there is like a more than probably 30% dislike thing on something that has a lot of views, it probably is a controversial topic or a topic that a lot of people just didn't like. Right? And maybe it's a quality issue or maybe there's some trolling going on or something or other. So you see this kind of thing happen where, like people will say, oh, that's a really bad like to dislike ratio, man. Now, the very far right column there, the dislike less ratio, is based upon the number of views and the number of likes. Basically take the number of likes, divide by the number of views, and that's where you get the dislike less ratio. Whereas the like to dislike ratio is the number of dislikes divided by the number of likes plus dislikes, right? And then you get that percentage, which is basically the opposite of what you would see when you're... So you see those percentages in the upper thing there. If I were to show you the original thing that I showed you here, it's going to be the opposite percentage. So basically you see where it says like 66.7%, that's going to be 33.33% because that's 2/3 and it's a third. So that's the opposite there. So you can see that at the bottom there, right here on the Tulsa Part 1, that's 33.33%, so the 67 point. So that's basically, it's the same as the other one, but it's the opposite. It's basically the inverse. The inverse of the, is that what they call it, the inverse? I think that's what they call it. over 1, basically. So you flip it around. So nerdiness aside, what this shows me is that it obfuscates things, but it doesn't quite obfuscate them enough, right? People are going to commit to that ratio thing that I said earlier, and my theory is that people are going to use that ratio, even if the ratio is not quite entirely true. But there is a somewhat correlated event where you have sort of like Anthrocon says bye-bye to Birdie, which was a 2 Griffin thing, which normally gets very much... he's got a lot of what do they call them? Avid fans. So like when I speak about 2 Griffin in a negative way, his fans kind of like to bomb the video, and I think this one also had ties to the hate statistics ones. But what I'm going to say here is this. The thing that Google said, Google basically says, well, people were using the dislike as sort of a rite of passage / thing to kind of target people. And the ones that are highlighted in red here, I know were targeted videos. And the reason I know they were targeted videos is because of the analytics and things like that. I 100% know that they were targeted for one reason or another. The To the Rancher Griffin and Statistics of Hate video was quote-unquote targeted because To the Rancher Griffin made a video about it and basically linked people towards that video and did a response to that video. And a lot of people who responded to that video didn't really watch my video, they just disliked it because To the Rancher Griffin sent them, and they basically echoed his talking points in the comment section and hit the dislike button. I went over that in another video, and the beauty of seeing dislikes in real time is that people can see it happening in real time too. So they could see the hypocrisy of people who are like, "Well, listen to both sides and listen to the fully things they say." But as soon as you try to have a conversation about these kind of things, they'll go and hate bomb it, right? They'll go and hit dislikes and get angry about things because the other person told them to get angry about it, and they try to get on the good graces of that person. And it can lead to this kind of position, and I kind of go over that in that video as to that sort of psychology at work. You have, and then you have the gamers versus furries ones here near the bottom. That one was not because of anything I said in the video. In fact, that video was very quiet for a long time after I had posted it. The reason that one got controversial or got quote-unquote hate-rated was because about a few years after I had made that video, gamers versus furries became a meme on TikTok. So a bunch of people started Googling and searching for gamers versus furries content on YouTube, and they found my thing, and they didn't watch it. They basically were just gamers that were basically noticing that I was a furry and disliking it, and then basically making like weird, creepy, like joke comments about, "I've got him in my sights, Captain. I'm going to take the shot," and like wartime nonsense, right? So that sort of like they weren't there to actually look at the content of the video, which ironically the content of that video was basically furries had a $13,000 fursuit get won in auction, and gamers on the same week had a $60,000 weapon skin in CSGO, won in auction. And furries were over here complaining about how that $13,000 is going towards something quote unquote useless, whereas in the gamer space, gamers were talking about like this $60,000 like CSO skin, a digital item which literally has no uses outside the digital world, and basically I noticed the hypocrisy in that, and like the sort of like, hey, gamers are over here like, "Oh, you think that's excessive things based on luxuries? Hold my beer," kind of a thing. So the video was mostly harmless in that way. It wasn't really saying that gamers are better than furries or furries are better than gamers. It was just a title, and people read the title and they basically based reactions based on the title, right? They were inflamed by the title. So that one I know got hate rated too. So those are the two very targeted things that basically Google would be aiming for. A bunch of these other ones are neutral. I don't know whether or not. The Tantru Plays Loopy is actually a very good example of like one that I didn't even think would become popular, but it did, which is very surprising to me. It's actually like about a nerdy game by Nicky Case and stuff like that. So I'm very surprised that it became as popular as it did. So what you can see here is that, you know, this sort of dislike list ratio sort of is smaller in this bottom half of the chart, but I think that's because there's more views. And I think that as the views increase, like the dislike ratio is going to be maybe less useful. It's going to drag the numbers down because the number of likes and dislikes are going to, the number of likes is going to go down, you know, the proportion is going to go down. It's probably going to reach a particular threshold as the numbers go up. So it looks like around 2% seems to be the normal ratio. Whereas in things that don't have many views, like my latest videos, might have a higher ratio simply because a lot of people haven't viewed the content. And, you know, there's what I call the concept of people who like a video just to like it, right? As I said earlier. So you're going to have those repeated loyal fans who are going to like your content, you know, simply because it's your content. And, you know, that's going to drive up the dislike list ratio on your not so popular content. But on your more popular content, you're probably going to approach more people who are, you know, not viewing your things. So in essence, I don't see any correlation here, other than it does seem that, you know, you have a few good examples here. There's 3 good examples of things that seem to be hate rated here. You know, Anthro says Bye Bye to Birdie, Gamers versus Furries, and Griffin in Statistics of Hate. So if it gets above a 50% ratio on a you know, platform like mine, you're probably dealing with people who are rating your thing. But that is sort of obfuscated here. You can't really see it all that well, maybe on some really low percentages. But just because it's obfuscated and just because these things are not actually correlated doesn't necessarily mean people on the internet are going to treat it that way. That's the problem. People gonna people, human gonna human. You can't stop them from trying to implement a system like this one and say that it has any correlation. So I'm going to get out ahead of the bus and say, according to my channel, they're not really correlated, and it's going to create more obfuscation. Now, that means mission accomplished, right? That's what YouTube wanted to do, and it looks like it was, in essence, successful. But there is one thing that I would like to know that it can be dangerous for, and that is that criticism, like comments and critiques and things like that, are going to be made off channel. And one big thing that I have to note here is that when you have misinformation memes, or, you know, sort of memes that provide information that can be harmful to other people, I think is when this dislike removal is at its most insidious. The prime example I can think of is about a decade and a half ago, there was a meme online that was about opening car batteries, okay? So these people would open car batteries and they would say, look at all these car batteries popping out. Like, all these big batteries have all these little batteries inside. The battery companies don't want you to know that if you pop open that car battery, there's like 10,000 double A's inside of it. It's like a little prize box. And so there was a parody video that was made about this, which is this where the screenshot is from, and you can see that up in the card above. Now, this particular example is excellent in showing how people were using the dislike button for a moral good, right? When people think of people think of dislikes and thumbs downs and booing, they think of the bad things that can come of it, but some people were doing their due diligence and using the dislike button in a moral and good manner. Like, the dislike button is not bad in and of itself, it's that if people are abusing a tool. And unfortunately, people are going to abuse tools that they are given. It's a natural thing, right? It happens a lot. The person who built the hammer probably wants you to use it to hammer nails into planks. But somebody can use the hammer to bludgeon somebody upside the head with it, right? Tools can be used for evil. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to get rid of all those tools when they're used for that evil, right? And that's probably the hardest part about society, is when you have a tool used against you in such a negative manner, you see the tool in and of itself as negative, right? So when people go on dislike grades, people see the dislike as an abusive tool. The tool is abusive. The tool is designed to be abusive, when it's not. It was designed for a purpose. And that purpose is to make sure the curation of content was important. And it's especially important on information things and things like that. Now, is it possible that they get abused every once in a while? Sure. But on the whole and whole, I personally believe that the dislike button got a bad rap. And this is an example why. Because this video, even though it was a parody, right, of a situation, there was one comment that was made a few years back saying, "I don't know why there are so many dislikes. I thought it was funny." And this comes where people are misconstruing what the dislikes are for. The reason that video had such a high dislike ratio was because people were going around to those battery hack videos and they were disliking them. They didn't watch them. They didn't watch them through. They were going through and disliking them because they knew that there was this fad, there was this trend of misinformation going on where people were like, "Open up these batteries, there's prizes inside." And knowing the damage and harm that it could do if somebody watched a video like that and believed that the person was making it in good faith and not being a meme or a troll, that they were actually going and doing those things and basically going to have the battery bleed out and burn their skin and like do damage, right, to themselves and to their property. And people were basically going to those kind of videos and hitting the thumbs down button, which is a good thing because that protects people. People are like, "Why do so many people dislike this video?" And people might use that during tutorial style videos, like here's how to fix a XYZ. If somebody is making something up or is not providing good information or is providing bad content in that kind of education space, then having the thumbs down and seeing that thumbs down is important, right? If somebody hides the like to dislike ratio or turns off the comment section, that is seen as sort of like they're trying to hide something, they're trying to obfuscate something. So people are still going to continue to make those kind of judgment calls, irregardless of what Google wants, right? People, you can create the tool. You cannot force people to use the tool in the way that you want to. And if you think it's such a huge problem that a majority of people or enough of people are using the tool that you designed in a way that's nefarious, then you need to come up with new solutions. And that obfuscation of the dislike is a solution, I guess. But it's not going to solve the problem. People are still going to, if somebody really doesn't like a content, people are now probably going to mass report, right? People are now probably going to abuse the report button rather than abusing the dislike button. And quite honestly, I would rather they abuse the dislike button than abuse the report button, because the report button can get your channel deactivated. Because that's what they're going to do now. They're going to if we can't voice our dislike by seeing a red bar go up, we're going to try to use the report button to bring the entire channel down. And quite honestly, that's a more nuclear option than letting those angry bros get their jollies off by hitting a thumbs down button. So I don't think this is going to solve the problem. It's just going to obfuscate it in a way where it's like. And by the way, if somebody people are probably still going to do the mass dislike thing. The difference is only the content creators are going to see it now, right? So instead of actually, quote unquote, solving the problem, it's just obfuscated it. It's sort of like, wearing dark sunglasses as a beaten wife, right? Not to put too fine a point on it. It's not solving the problem, it's hiding it from view, right? It's ignoring the problem and saying okay, there's these people who are being belligerent online and using the dislike button to, do political points or in their little sociological gang warfare. But, I'm going to put dark sunglasses over my eyes so that people won't ask, why do you have a shiner there, right? Because before, people could see the shiner, right? And that was one of the things that happened during those times where my channel was attacked in such a way, right? where, people were rating it, Dog Patch did a whole article on like the video that I did about the hate crime statistics being rated by 2 Griffin fans and hitting the dislike button, and basically, shining a light on that because everybody could see it. Now, if something like that were to happen again, no one's going to see it. And even if I were to do a screenshot of the, my analytics like I did just now, people could say, "Oh, you're just making up you're just making that stuff up and blah blah blah." So like, "Oh, you fell down some stairs," not to beat that metaphor to death and then put sunglasses on it. Anyways, I think that's where I'll stop it before that gets even darker. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I know this was kind of a meta video, but a lot of people requested it in the chat and stuff like that. So, I do listen to my fans and what kind of content they do want me to provide. In the future, I'm going to be going over the final statistics for the conventions for the year, since we've had Midwest Fur Fest. So I think that's where we'll be going next. And so be sure to kick the subscribe button if you want to see more content from here. Thank you very much for watching. Kick that like button, which is, by the way, more important now that I said that, this ratio thing could exist, right? Basically, if you don't click the thumbs up button, you're basically clicking the dislike button now. That's literally what Google's done. Like, if you don't click like, you basically click dislike. Because that's the ratio people are going to be dealing with things now, theoretically. So if that's true, then that means if you don't click the like button, you're clicking the dislike button. Sorry, that's Google's fault. Maybe it was purposeful, I don't know. But anyways, if you want to kick the like button, you can click the dislike button, but we won't see it. We just put dark glasses over it. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Anyways, do whatever you want to do with the like button. And also kick a comment in the comment section about what you feel about the dislikes and things like that. I think that this also provides an opportunity for people to see what smaller channels are dealing with this particular situation. I think it was done to help protect the emotional feelings of executives at larger corporations who have more sway over providing content to YouTube, because I think YouTube wants to promote more big name content creators coming in, but the only way that they're going to promote them coming in is if we don't have any way of basically giving them a black eye with a thumbs down button. I think that was the primary goal of it. I don't think it was for protection of myself, because if it was, it would have happened years ago. But who knows? That's what they're going to say in their PR firms, and people can believe it or not believe it. Don't just call me a bit skeptical. I think a lot of people have pointed that out, that they believe that, and that's sort of where I fall as well. But anyways, if you have a comment on it that's different or contrarian, please feel free to write that in the description below. We'll see you guys next week, and thank you very much for watching this Ramblin' Roo, and we will see you next time. Thank you.